welcome back to Finding Fashion. Today I'm really excited to welcome Rachel Bassett, who is the Senior Content Editor at Bloomingdales. Thanks so much for joining me, Rachel. It's lovely to see you.
Hello, thanks for having me.
Not at all, it's brilliant to have you on. So can you tell me a little bit about what your role is all about?
Yes, so as you said, I'm the Senior Content Editor of Bloomingdales Middle East. Not to be confused with Bloomingdales in US, because we don't do anything for them right now. And that basically means that I create content for Bloomingdales. So whether that is a billboard that we see on the streets here in Dubai, or something as little as an SMS or a push note, I kind of create all the communications that we put out throughout the year. And I also have a few other brands on my portfolio. So I work for the Harvey Nichols Dubai, and then some other fine jewelry brands as well across the portfolio. So yeah, a few different ones to span across.
So you started your career working for newspapers and magazines over in the UK, in London. How did the move to Dubai come about?
So yeah, I worked in magazines and newspapers for, it must have been about seven or 8 years, I think, in total. And that's kind of including all the internships and everything as well. And then one day, I was briefly working with a girl called Olivia Phillips, who is now the editor of Harper's Bazaar Arabia here in Dubai. And she was just telling me that she was just running off to have a quick kind of Zoom meeting for a really exciting opportunity. And then I later found out that that was her moving to Dubai. And I just kind of said in passing, oh, I'd so love to do that. That's amazing. And then 2-3 years later, she emailed me and said, did you mean what you said? Because we've got a role coming up. She was working for Emirates Women at the time, which is a magazine here. And she said, we've got a role coming up. I'm actually leaving. They want to fill the position with someone. Would you be interested? And obviously I said yes. And it kind of went from there, really. And then, yeah, that was my first job here in Dubai. They flew me over, and that was my first position. I think I was stylist and writer at Emirates Women magazine.
What was the whole interview process like? Because you being like in London and then the job being in Dubai, how did you kind of find out about what the role was all about and what it was going to be like?
It was actually quite similar to what I think a stylist and writer role would be in London. I did have to do, I remember, I think I had to do like a big kind of project as part of the interview process. And I just remember cancelling all my weekend plans. I think it was like Easter weekend and it was a long weekend and I just did all this work. And yeah, they'd asked me to kind of, write a few bits for the magazine, or what I would do if I was in that position, and what I would shoot if I was doing one of their still life pages. So kind of mocked up a load of work. Mm-hmm. And yeah, they obviously liked it, and then it was kind of onto Zoom calls and meeting the team, and then yeah, it just went from there. So I would say it was actually quite similar to the process that you would get in London. It was probably more the HR stuff that was different. So obviously currency is different, the salary works different here. You're moving to a whole new country, they need to organize your flights. That's where it was kind of different and scary.
What was that kind of process like with you kind of getting to grips personally with moving to a whole new country? Like, had you been to Dubai before? Did you know that you liked it?
I had actually. I have a few friends that live here, and that meant that I'd come out to visit quite a few times before. So I knew it was something that I wanted to do, and I always kind of dreamt of moving here. But yeah, that's not to say it wasn't still a culture shock when I got here and actually started working here, because obviously when I visited, I was on holiday, I was, free as a bird, going out whenever I wanted. but it's a very different experience when you are working full time. It's not a holiday anymore. I get that a lot from people at home. If I haven't got a tan and I come home, they're like, "What? Why haven't you got a tan? You live in a hot country." Yes, but I do work 5 days a week. Everyone else. So yeah, definite culture shock. Because I'd always lived in the UK. So yeah, it's just everything's brand new. And that means, you know, starting afresh with contact. As a journalist, contacts is, you know, really, really important. And I came out here and I didn't have any. So that was a struggle.
Mm-hmm. How did you build up those contacts again, like from scratch?
It was really kind of learning from my colleagues, learning from editors, quickly getting yourself out there, going to events, and yeah, trying to kind of build it up that way. But yeah, I did definitely find that things worked differently here. It was so kind of easy in some senses, having been in the UK for however many years in the industry, and having those go-to people, like, right, I'm doing a feature on dresses. I'd be like, right, I'll speak to so-and-so at New Look, so-and-so at ASOS, and it was so kind of easy. And then, yeah, I was suddenly working on a new publication that also included very different brands. I kind of had gone from quite a high street background to suddenly this luxury, high fashion kind of publication. And I just had to throw myself in and, you know, cold call people, go for coffees with people, and ask the people that I worked with 100 questions a day. Who should I contact for this? Who should I contact for this? So yeah, it's probably rather annoying, but got there in the end. Yeah.
Been there. So you mentioned there that when you moved to Dubai, you started working for Emirates, and you've also worked for Grazia over there as well. How did your kind of experience starting off within editorial in the UK set you up for the kind of job roles in Dubai?
So I guess, like I said about the interview process, I felt like I was quite comfortable with magazines. So my degree was in fashion journalism. So we'd really kind of learned every step of how to create a magazine. And I'd had quite a lot of experience of that in the UK. So I feel like that was quite transferable to any other magazine. Like, yes, I struggled with the contacts and learning new brands and designers and local designers here and stuff. But I think I had the kind of base of a good experience because I'd worked for magazines in the past. And, you know, I'd done a lot of writing and a lot of styling, and all of those skills are, I think, very transferable to wherever you go. You just need kind of different factors to put into play for each. But yeah, I think, you know, from the very beginning, interning and just handling samples and writing and going through editing, all of that kind of set me up for, yeah, the magazines that I started working for when I got here.
In terms of readerships, because even in London, in the UK, and whatever country you work in, across different magazines and across different newspapers, there's all the readerships are so different. Yeah. How did you go about learning about your new readerships that you were trying to connect with when you moved to Dubai?
Yeah, that was quite challenging because I wasn't necessarily mixing in those circles of locals as soon as I arrived, you know. But I think I just kind of learned on the job with that. So you get to understand the big kind of retail moments here. For instance, Ramadan and Eid are huge. And I think I moved just as Ramadan was ending or something. And I learned very quickly that, you know, that's a really big kind of moment here in Dubai for Muslims. And yeah, I think just working with my editors, certain things would come back and say, Rachel, you can't say that, or you can't write that. And I just learned on the job.
Mm.
You know, I think at the time it was, I don't know exactly about the laws, but I couldn't mention boyfriends and girlfriends in copy, and I'd written something about your boyfriend or whatever, and we just have to be very careful with stuff like that. And you know, it's the same with shoots. As I said, it's a Muslim country. The majority of people dress very modestly here. We can't have a model on a billboard with, you know, a little short skirt on. You have to be modest. People dress differently. And yeah, I think I just learned that very quickly. But I guess it's also kind of looking at the influencers here that are really big, going to the mall and seeing like how people dress differently and what shops they're going into, and you just pick up on it, really. It wasn't so much of a conscious thing that I was doing. It was just something that I learned, maybe the hard way, but yeah, I think I just learned it on the job.
So for anybody in the same position as you who is thinking about moving to Dubai, what advice would you give them?
I would honestly say just do it. I think I'd been thinking about it for years. As I said, I kept visiting friends here and I just loved it, but I was so scared to move out here without a job. I don't know, that's just like a safety thing within me. And when I actually came out here, I realized that, there's actually so many more opportunities that I could have explored if I just had my feet on the ground. Because, you know, it's the same in London. If you just email someone, you might get lost in their inbox. If you offer to take someone out for coffee and say, I'd really love to just have 5 minutes with you, face-to-face contact or whatever, it's so much more personable. So yeah, to anyone thinking about it that isn't really getting anywhere with their search, I would just say, make the move. You know, be prepared with what you maybe want to do, who you think you could contact, but home is always going to be there. So I think just do it if you're in a position to do so. I think take a little leap of faith.
There we go. Advice to everybody. So now that your role is more centered around like creating content for brands, engaging with those audiences is so pivotal to be able to create that content that, you know, they're really going to engage with. When you're thinking about all of those kind of, you know, cultural factors that you immersed yourself in when you moved to Dubai and still now, how do you kind of use that knowledge of culture and, you know, local kind of activity and interest to create content that you think that your audience, your following, are really going to kind of engage with?
So I actually think this is more about kind of analysing the data that we get. So Bloomingdales, I was on the team that launched the website it's coming up to 2 years now, so it's only 2 years old. And I think for us, a lot of it is, looking at our competitors and seeing what they do really well. But also now we've got a couple of years under our belt, we do have a little bit more data to see, this is what our customers respond well to. This is what they're buying. These are the brands that they like. These are the pages that they're spending a few minutes on, you know, as opposed to, they didn't click on that email. They really didn't like that subject line. So yeah, it's kind of a lot of analysis. We have heat maps for the website, so we can see, you know, where people have clicked on, how far they scroll down on the app, things like that. So we then have to be quite reactive to what our customers actually want and what they're responding to. So yeah, and I think it's down to things like A/B testing. You know, we can send the same email out, send it with 2 different subject lines and see what people click on more. So I think it's actually, you know, not saying we know what they love, we're actually just learning, I think, as we go, in terms of my role anyway, and what they respond to and what they engage with on social. It's kind of unpredictable. We might think we're putting something out that's amazing, but they might not respond to it. So yeah, we're kind of learning as we go, I guess.
I think every brand does though, don't they? You can't just get to any point and say, right, we know exactly who our customer is. We know exactly who they're going to behave, right, done, dusted. You know, you're always going to be learning about your customer because trends change, their tastes change, like their lives change. And so it's so important to carry on learning about your consumer.
Yeah, that's exactly it. Like, we know the majority of our customers don't even shop on desktop. They're all on their mobiles, and we kind of have to break down that data because we kind of span across the Middle East. We'll ship to kind of Kuwait. We've got Kuwait website, KSA, UAE, and there's differences between the regions as well. So we now need to kind of tailor our content a little bit to each region. We know that Kuwaiti customers absolutely love a certain 3 luxury brands, whereas in UAE they don't do as well. So yeah, it's about collating the data and then trying to give them what they want. But yeah, we're just constantly learning.
When it comes to kind of learning all about all of those different consumers, how do you kind of think about like what they're going to like? Because even in Dubai, there's such a mix of cultures over there, from like traditional people who live in Dubai, from, you know, people like you who have come over and now live in Dubai. How do you kind of tailor that content to ensure that there's something that's going to appeal to everybody? Like, where do you change it?
So I think we always have to be respectful of the region that we're in, down to, you know, we won't put a model in a bikini on the homepage. As much as me as an expat, I know that, you know, winter here is coming and it's gorgeous weather and I want to buy bikinis. We won't do that, but we'll then tailor that and, you know, still put that on the homepage, because we know a lot of expats here will want to be buying swimwear. But we'll just do it as a flat lay, or, you know, still kind of follow the shopping moments, but just do it differently. So again, we don't really shout about Christmas here. It's a Muslim country. It's not something they typically celebrate, but we still run a big kind of festive campaign and just package it differently. And then it's the same for campaigns like Ramadan. We know that people want, you know, gorgeous long kaftans, cool kind of modest clothing. So it's still about following those retail moments. It's just being more mindful, I guess, of, you know, the region that we're in, and tailoring it per kind of culture, because yeah, it is a complete mix. So sometimes we need to tap into, you know, Diwali as well as Christmas, as well as International Women's Day that spans across all. So yeah, it's tricky, but we find a way.
Yeah. And within your role, since you've kind of been in Dubai, you've gone from working in editorial to then going across to commercial and working for, you know, Harvey Nichols and Bloomingdales. How did you kind of transfer those skills from editorial to commercial?
Yeah, so that was actually such a turning point in my career, and one that I didn't really know was going to happen, because I'd been working for magazines, like I said, I studied journalism. I'd been working in magazines ever since I graduated, and then all of a sudden magazines were just closing down all around me. I got made redundant from Emirates Women, which was the first position I had here in Dubai, after only 6 months. And I just started to kind of love my life here. And I thought, what should I do next? I don't really want to go to another magazine, because, you know, as I said, a lot of them here were closing. What's my next step? I don't know anything else. Like, magazines is all I know. But yeah, I knew that I kind of had that skill set of finding a fashion story, out of anything. You know, knowing the trends so well, being able to write, whether that's a feature, a designer interview, or like a short news story, and styling. And those skills were still needed across kind of e-com websites. So yeah, I ended up working for a brand called Namshi out here, which was my favorite place to shop at the time. And yeah, there was a lot to learn, but I also kind of felt, as I'm such an avid shopper, online shopper anyway, knowing myself, the customer journey that you take when you purchase something, or when you click on a blog and read that, and what you click on, and, you know, on the homepage or the top nav where I'm going and whatever, I then just kind of transferred my skills that I'd learned all those years and applied it to an online platform instead of a publication. So yeah, there was so much more to learn. So many kind of terminology, so much terminology that I didn't understand because it was suddenly this digital realm. But yeah, it worked out in the end, but it was very scary at the time. But yeah, I think if that gives anyone hope for, you know, if they're doing something now and then it's not really working out, there's so many skills that are transferable into something else. But most importantly, just being open, working hard, being kind of up for anything, and getting your hands, kind of getting stuck into anything, that can actually go a really long way as well.
Yeah, definitely. The desire and the hunger to do it sometimes beats everything else because you want to learn.
Yeah, I remember actually saying in one of my interviews for Namshi, I don't think there was actually a role at the time, but I'd gone and met with the VP, who was really lovely. And I just said, I know how to do this, and this. I've got all these skills. I just don't know what to do with them. And then, you know, a month later, she'd got in contact and was like, I think we've got the role for you now.
Yeah.
So
well, it just goes to show, doesn't it? You just don't know who you're going to meet.
Yeah, exactly.
So your role now means that working in-house for a brand means that you are working with kind of lots of different brands. You're working with different teams. So, you know, working in editorial, you'd be working with, you know, art directors or sub-editors. And now you're working with like buyers, visual merchandisers, that sort of thing. Yeah. How do you kind of work with those different departments in order to shape the content that you create?
So it kind of starts with buying. They're the first to kind of, you know, go to the fashion weeks and fashion months and fashion month, and figure out what collections they're buying, what designers they're buying into, what new designers they think would work really well at Bloomingdales or Harvey Nicks. And then once that's finalized, they kind of present that back to the teams. So that's kind of the first point that I see, right, what's coming up for spring, summer 2022. They've bought into this and that. I mean, oh, there's a new collaboration there. And, oh, okay, summer looks very like this palette of colors or whatever. And then we can then go away and start to think about, okay, how are we going to present that as content for our customers? And then I suppose that's the content team kind of working with merchandise and trade and marketing to all kind of come together and create something. So by the time kind of a brief comes to me, we know that maybe we want to focus on footwear. We know that these are our top brands that are top spends that we've spent the most money on. So we need to give them some love. And then I can kind of run with it and say, okay, let's do a campaign. I mean, for example, one we've just run, shoes of the season. I can see there's a big trend for super strappy shoes. We've got loads of boots in this year that we haven't had previously. Let's shout about those. And what was the third one? Kind of like this new wave of classics, kind of classics with a twist. So then I kind of present that and say, right, let's do a video a shoppable video. Let's put that on TikTok and social. Let's do a landing page to kind of describe the trends. And then that will filter through emailers, social posts, social stories, digital ads, and that's when it all kind of comes to life. So that's essentially how it kind of starts. That sounds very simple. It's not that easy, but that's the gist of it.
And what about scheduling? So how do you decide, like, at what point, you know, this story is going to go live or this TikTok's going to go live? Like, what's your calendar process like?
So we know from trade that there's certain moments in the year where customers are searching for certain things. So typically we know during Ramadan and Eid, people are going to be buying gifts for Eid at the end of Ramadan. So it's all kind of about those shopping and retail moments that happen year after year. Trend is obviously different because that changes each year, but there's essentially repetition in those moments throughout the year. And we know that, okay, Eid is a huge retail moment. We're gonna make a gift guide and, you know, make different edits of gifts for her, for him, for loved ones, whatever. And then, yeah, make it easy for our customers, really. We also have a lot of brand commitments that we need to publish. So our kind of top spends, let's say Saint Laurent, Balenciaga, we put out a lot of communications for them, showing their new collections, because our customers really, that's our bread and butter. That's what they want. They want the new collections. And then we kind of fit editorial content around that. So, okay, where can we then do our nice fluffy storytelling, and those more kind of like editorial moments. So, yeah.
When it comes to deciding what goes across different platforms, you know, there's a huge discussion around like multi-channel marketing now, and your role means it's so important to be able to pivot between creating content for TikTok, for email, for, you know, your website, for landing pages, or for social media, for everything. Kind of, how do you ensure that that content flows between all of those different platforms and different activity?
So I think imagery is a massive player for that. I think especially with social, you know, they're very visual platforms, and you'll often see the same campaign through different touch points, but you might not even realize. So you could be Googling something else and you'll see a digital ad for Bloomingdales, but then you'll also see a sponsored ad on your mobile. And it's not necessarily, sometimes a campaign name can go across all of those if it's something short, if it's snappy, but imagery is probably the thing that stays consistent throughout different channels if it's a campaign. But when it comes to kind of writing and copy, yeah, that will really change between channels, because, you know, a digital ad, they're tiny. People aren't going to really stop and read what's on there. Or same for a billboard, they're driving straight past it. They've got to be able to read something in 1 second. Whereas emailer is something they might actually open and might have 5 minutes to read, and then click onto a landing page and read a designer interview or something. But, you know, you would never put a Q&A with the Attico girls on a feed post or something, or like a quick story or digital ad, because you get to know where your customers have the time and what channel it's suitable for. So there's definitely a way of dispersing that content across all channels, but you need to tailor it per channel. And as you know, Bloomings is omni retail. We have store and website, and yeah, I'd say the biggest crossover there is our imagery, our big campaign imageries that will cover the walls of the store, but we won't necessarily have any kind of copy on that, but it just creates that 360 approach visually. So yeah, but we have experts for every channel, you know. So whilst I feel like I know how to tailor my content per channel, we also have experts in every field. So they can say, actually, there's a new digital trend that's going on here. Can you maybe change that and add a CTA to this, or, you know, whatever. So yeah.
It's just the power of collaboration, isn't it? Because I think there's this kind of misconception when you're entering into industry that you have to be this absolute expert and know absolutely everything in your field. But actually, everybody has different skill sets, and thinking about kind of how you can work together to build that one amazing kind of end product that, you know, you might have an area of expertise in something, and then somebody else can bring something totally different to the table.
Yeah, I completely agree. And it's worrying sometimes, because you see roles advertised sometimes and they do want someone to do it all. But when you really delve into it, you do need an expert per channel. And that's exactly it. It comes down to collaboration and sharing that expertise.
Mm-hmm. So when it comes to thinking about social media and, you know, working within a digital space, there is like new technology being developed all the time. You talked earlier about using those customer insights and looking at their behaviors to be able to shape your content. How do you kind of really think, like, delve deeper and learn from those insights in order to, you know, shape those kind of repeat pieces of content for the following year and really learn from them?
Yeah, so we really want our customers to actually provide us with more information. So that's why you're always getting prompted to create an account, give us more details, tell us when your birthday is, you know, all of those things. The more information we get given by our customers, the more we can, you know, understand how they shop and, you know, what they're looking for. Yeah, I don't think it's an easy feat. That's obviously not completely my area of expertise anyway, but we can talk to people in store, which is great. You know, we do a lot of kind of personal shopping appointments and things like that. So our store staff can say, okay, we generally have this kind of woman, she's this kind of age, whatever. But that doesn't necessarily mean she's the same woman that's shopping online. So yeah, it is about kind of really getting into the nitty gritty of the data that we do have, trying to collate more. I think social is good as well. We can kind of see who's kind of engaging with stories and responding to TikTok. And yeah, I think it just comes back to, you know, the testing, trying to get as much information as we can from stats and, you know, the average order of baskets during sales. You know, are our customers more interested in full price moments, or are they really holding out and stocking up on their wish list until there's a sale? So it's really just about analysing the shopping habits per region. But yeah, we can find out quite a lot. As I said, like the heat maps, we can see where people are touching on the app and how they're shopping. Are they shopping by the navigation at the top, or are they clicking on images? Are they clicking on CTAs? So that kind of suggests, okay, maybe they're not even if they're all clicking on the image and they're not, no one's clicking on the CTA, then maybe they're not even reading the copy that we write, you know? So, okay, maybe let's try and shorten our copy, make it snappier. So yeah, it's a bit of kind of trial and error, but we can also see what customers are searching for on our search engine. So we know for a fact that our customers have been searching for Chanel on Bloomingdales ever since it launched, and we haven't stocked Chanel up until this week. So we've now done a massive launch for Chanel Beauty online, because we know that that's what our customers have been wanting, because we can tell what's the #1 search word that they've been putting in. So yeah, it's stuff like that really. But I think it does differ to, I don't know, I think the world of magazines was kind of more surrounded on focus groups and real people and stuff like that. But now I think it's all very much data driven.
Mm-hmm. So I think, you know, personally, having looked at and worked in-house for a fashion brand, to me, like whole brand content is a new area of the fashion industry, which has boomed over recent years. And brand content roles, they are becoming like it is like the fastest booming kind of area within the fashion industry. Where do you see like the future of online content going? Like, where do you think that almost you'd want to be going within kind of your role?
So I do think it's not enough to just go to an e-commerce site anymore. I kind of want everything when I get there. So Net, I think, are an amazing, Net-a-Porter are a really amazing example of e-commerce platform that supplies editorial and celebrity inspiration and all the rest, all in one place. So I definitely think that's some element. But for me, I think it's all going to come down to personalization. So you know what it's like when you're searching for one thing on a website with thousands and thousands and thousands of products. It's hard work. You know, it's not like
overwhelming.
Yeah, completely. You end up giving up. Like I know kind of online shopping to many is so much easier, but when you walk into a shop, you can see at least 50 items at once, or some mannequins in the window, 6 at a time, and you can scan things very quickly. But when you're shopping on a website, you have to kind of go almost, 4 by 4 to look at every product. So for me, I think the future is personalization, which is already visible on, a few different websites. And we are doing that to a certain extent to, per region, giving them what we think they want. But I think ASOS are doing quite a good job of it actually at the moment. I don't know if you've noticed, but on my app, I'll get an edit specifically for me, which is completely based on the items that I usually look at or add to basket or add to wish list. And my app could look completely different to your app. So it's about kind of reading that customer data and giving them what they usually look for or what they're searching for. So yeah, for me, I think that is the future of online shopping, making it easier for the customer, or as easy as you can.
And how do you think that would filter into, what you do as a content editor? Like how do you think that would kind of shape up your workflow almost?
Well, I think it just sounds like more work, actually. I would be producing the same content, but just more of it, right, to each people. So yeah, I don't actually know, because that's something we've not really delved into. I don't know how that looks I know how that looks from a customer's perspective, but I don't know how that looks internally right now. So yeah, we'll have to wait and see, I guess.
Yeah, just all of those things all to come. Well, yeah. Rachel, it's been so lovely to see you. You're on screen. And I really appreciate your time that you've taken out of your day to talk to me. Like, it's been so interesting hearing about your role in Dubai. I see you on Instagram all the time. You look like you're living your best life. But it's just been really amazing to see your insights.
Oh, thanks. So nice to see you.
You too. We'll have a great rest of the day, and I hope to see you soon.
Yes, you too.
Thanks, Rachel. Bye.
Bye.